Hi, today I will start with 3 fascinating facts related to the topic, and at the end I will give you detailed breakdown on each of them. First one, rats can die out of pure fear. Second one, zebras on the other side have insanely efficient stress reset system, and they can go from pure survival mode to a complete chill in instants. And a third one, octopuses have very complex nervous system and each of their limbs is controlled separately. Now let's go to the serious stuff. Every day we are either dealing with something that is very overwhelming to us, or we are dealing with tiny things that on its own are not as important, but when they pile up, they are overwhelming altogether. And all this is creating quite a chaos in our head, and dealing with it is either energetically very taxing or sometimes even impossible. So by the end of the day, we are completely exhausted, and sometimes, many times, the head is still spinning when we are already in bed. That many times leads to a problem with falling asleep, or sometimes people even take all their shit with them into their dreams. People tend to approach this in a way when they attempt, and mostly unsuccessfully, to think way out of it. But that is never going to work. My name is Paolo, and in this video I will explain you why it's impossible to think your way out of a problem that was created by thinking in the first place. I will show you what is more efficient way to deal with this, and why people who are great at handling stress will actually never even say that they are stressed. And it's not just denial, it's way simpler and way more cooler than that. We need to realize one thing. We have roughly 6,000 thoughts every day. Some of them are just fragments and some of them are complex ideas and concepts, so it is very hard to even assess what is a thought. However, 80 to 90% of the thoughts we have are the same ones we had previous day. People generally tend to assume that everything can be solved by thinking, but we are living in extremely overstimulating world. Our biology was developed in times where we met and knew around 150 people in our whole lifetime. And in the world where we are living right now, we probably meet 150 people within first 2 or 3 years of our life. And the same way, the amount of information that is thrown at us every single day is absolutely unprecedented. We know stuff that is happening on the opposite side of the world, and even 50, 60 years ago, this just wasn't the case. Definitely not in the same rate as it's now. We are bombarded with information, opinions, and most of them are completely out of our control. But brain doesn't know that. Our brain is problem-solving tool. It was designed for problem solving. So whenever there is any piece of information we have, we are trying to analyze it, we're trying to sort it somewhere, and if not solve the problem itself, at least create an opinion on it. Too many things to do, too many tasks, too many messages to reply to, too many calls to make. And with the volume that is coming at us, that is creating really high pressure. And this pressure is leading to a sympathetic state. Actually, sympathetic overload, as usually it will become very overwhelming. We are not staying in active fight state, but we'll slide to flight, where we are still kind of dealing with the situation, but we actually don't want to be part of it anymore, at least not on the neural level. I did basic breakdown of these neural states in a separate video, and I'll put the link down in description. So we are overwhelmed, and there are of course problems and situations that are ours to deal with. So we need to somehow sort them out, or at least try to, and face them. But here is the shift. It cannot and it will not happen by thinking more. If the problem is overthinking, there is no way we can solve it by thinking even more. To be able to productively deal with this, we first need to shift from sympathetic flight into parasympathetic flow. Get it all in order and then reapproach it from a calm place. And as I said, it cannot happen by thinking, so it needs to happen by doing, by action. Ideally, physical action first. As simple as focusing on the breathing, going for a walk, do light and easy workout while ideally still focusing on the breathing. You can imagine it as two parts of an arch leaning into each other. If on one side the load is mental and external, coming from the environment, from outside, the best chance to balance it is with internal and physical action, so it doesn't collapse and it doesn't reinforce the problem, but it will actually balance it out, so we reinforce these two arms of an arch for a better support. And when through this physical action we find that peace, we find that flow, then we can start actually deal with the problem. Imagine you have all that running thoughts and there is hundreds or thousands of them. We sort them out, filter them, calm the noise and excessive stimulation, and that is also where we are most likely to find all the answers we need anyway. Once mind is calm, then the next action becomes fairly clear. We focus on what we can control, we select one step and then we act on it. So there is no more looping, but actual productive solution. When it is described like this in a conceptual way, it sounds pretty simple, but of course the daily application is way harder. And that is why we need to practice this. And we can practice it through and in physical training. You can look at training as a kind of accelerator of this experience, just in more clear way, where we see all these states coming and we can recognize and feel them better in this controlled environment. And when we see what is happening, we can also learn how to switch between them more clearly. You start your training, whether it's running or any kind of workout. You start and it feels fairly easy, okay, you are flowing. Then it becomes more challenging and you are required to push harder. You are getting more towards fight state. And as it continues and you keep pushing, you are going back and forth between this flow and fight. Then eventually it becomes so challenging that you are coming closer to that place where it's really tough and you are closer to stopping or quitting, and that is the first signs of flight. But you overcome that and you go back into fight, you power through. And you can have a couple of these exchanges from fight sliding into flight because it's really hard, and powering through back into fight, getting you back into action. But that can't last forever. And here are 3 possible scenarios what follows, and each of them will determine the depth and efficiency of the experience. First one, you stay in fight and you finish in fight. You finish your training on that high note, your testosterone will be boosted afterwards, your growth hormone will be boosted afterwards, and you just leave the gym happy and sound. Or if you mess up and you go deep into flight and finish workout there, your cortisol will be higher and your recovery will be impacted and you will definitely not feel great for the rest of the day. And by the way, if we do this too often, we will probably slide into something like a chronic flight state where we have a need to beat ourselves up in every workout, and on the long term that's not really productive because the flight is also seed of anxiety and we can build this deeper problem where we are able to get deep into flight by pushing too much, but we kind of lack a tool of how to get out of there. And for a daily life, that's not ideal experience and definitely not a habit we want to build. However, there is a third option, and that is where the actual magic happens. So you are pushing hard, fight, flight, fight, flight. I don't mean in a physical way, but mentally, you really don't want to be there anymore. And at some point, you cannot just power through and go back to fight. That's at some point you will run out of that option because you just won't have the capacity, the power of will. And even if you would try, you might actually slide into freeze and completely dissociate because the demand you put on your body was just too much. So there is one reasonable option left. Stop, reassess and focus on your breathing. Calm down, regain control through breathing, get to flow, and then build up the intensity again into the fight. But at this scenario, you are coming there from a place of control you choose. And maybe you will get close to quitting again. You are in fight, you might drop back to flight again, reassess, focus on breathing, and that's it. You just learned something. You learned not only when to push hard, but mainly that you can be in charge of your neural states. And on top of it, you also learned what it feels like to be there and what it feels like to switch between them. And if you do this regularly, it will become a second nature that you are choosing which state and how deep you are experiencing. The key point is that you need to get to flow first, as flow is an expression of order, and fight can only follow after, as that's your expression of capacity to productively deal with what's ever in front of you. Organize first, then execute. And this literally applies to absolutely everything that we are facing, whether it's thoughts, tasks, calls, workout, or any kind of an overwhelming problem. And long term, on one side, it is building our capacity to deal with discomfort, but on the other side, it is also building our awareness and ability to recognize when it's coming so we can catch it early. And when we see it coming early from miles away, we can prepare better and we get ready and smash whatever is in front of us, or we get back to our breath, reassess, reorganize, make sure that we prioritize the right stuff, and then navigate back to fight, back to action. And there is one interesting fact worth noticing, especially when talking about early recognition of this stress coming at us. And it is physiological symptoms and how professionals are able to deal with it. Because when you think about it, increased heart rate, increased rate of breathing, redness, sweating more, these are all signs or symptoms of stress. However, they are at the same time exact same symptoms we are experiencing when we are excited for something. Somebody who is excited has elevated heart rate. He is breathing a little bit faster. He might be starting to sweat. So sometimes just reframing how we look at the situation is all that we need. Professional athletes do this all the time. Most of the time when you ask them if they are scared or they are anxious before the race, they'll tell you, no, I'm excited. But how can you really tell? Physiological symptoms are the same, so it seems that's just in our heads. Remember, when you are overwhelmed, it is most likely not your fault. But that doesn't mean that it's not your responsibility how you respond to it. You are in charge, you have the power in your hands, you have control over your neural states if you have the right tools. And the main tool for that, it's always with us, that's our breath. Thank you for watching, my name is Paolo. Send this video to 2 people. First one, somebody who you want to help to get their stress responses under control. And second, somebody who is responsible for your high stress. Just don't tell them who is who. And towards our facts from the beginning, rats really can die out of pure stress. If they are cornered, they have a hard time dealing with it, and many times even just a smell of a predator for them, it's enough to stress them out so much that it will lead to a cardiac failure for them. Zebras, on the other hand, have incredibly fast switching between sympathetic and parasympathetic after they are chased by a predator. For them, it's just a couple of minutes. Obviously, when they survived, it's just a couple of minutes and they are completely chilled, heart rate is back to normal, and they just continue with their life. So probably the lesson would be more like a zebra and less like a rat. And the last one, octopuses have insanely complex nervous system, and also their stress response can be pretty strong, and it can reach almost something we would describe as a freeze mode, when their limbs can go paralyzed and their limbs can get crippled and movement impaired just by high stress. Thank you for watching. If you have any ideas, comments, suggestions, reach out directly to me or comment under the video. See you next time.